The first time Kalen Morrow met Dr. Zherix, he was lying on a padded diagnostic slab aboard the interstellar medical frigate Halcyon Vale. His right calf had seized mid-training during a simulated gravity drill, and in an effort to avoid face-planting into a titanium panel, he'd twisted violently and landed flat on his back. The pain was sharp, but nothing he hadn't felt before. He'd had cramps during high school track, during boot camp, and once halfway up a rock face in the Andes. This was familiar territory. But to Dr. Zherix, it was a life-threatening emergency. The alien physician hovered over him, its long, translucent appendages twitching as it activated a series of diagnostic lenses that scanned his leg. Its voice came through the translator with a sterile, clinical urgency. Subject's lower limb musculature is exhibiting acute contractile dysfunction. Spasmodic tremors detected. Internal compression may result in vascular blockage. Prognosis, terminal within 6 standard cycles if not stabilized. Kalen blinked. Wait, what? Zherix's eyes, 3 of them, set in a triangular arrangement, focused on him. You are dying. Kalen tried to sit up, but the muscle seized again. He clenched his teeth, groaned, then let out a short, breathy laugh. No, Doc. It's a cramp. Zherix paused. Definition, cramp? A muscle spasm. Painful, yeah. Fatal? Not unless I fall off something because of it. Zherix turned to a nearby assistant and began issuing commands in its native tongue. Machine's word, scanners recalibrated, and a mechanical brace with biofeedback sensors was wheeled in. Kalen waved a hand. Doc, seriously. I just need some water, maybe some salt. You're overreacting. You are not qualified to override medical protocol. I've had these since middle school. Zherix hesitated, then turned to its console. Query, historical occurrence of this condition among human population? The assistant fed in the data. The screen lit up with a range of results: dehydration, electrolyte imbalance, overexertion. None of them fatal. The physician stood still, appendages folding inward. Impossible. The pain signature alone meets the threshold for critical intervention. Kalen sighed and leaned back. Pain doesn't always mean death. Sometimes it's just pain. Zherix didn't respond right away. It stood in contemplative silence as Kalen massaged his own calf, slowly working the knot out. A nurse, another alien, this one with a more familiar humanoid frame, brought him a hydration pack and some mineral supplements. Within 10 minutes, the spasm had stopped. See? Kalen said, wiggling his toes. Just needed a minute. Zherix remained unconvinced. The human pain tolerance continues to defy classification. Yeah, well, we're a stubborn species. The cramp incident might have ended there, but Zherix filed a full report to the Council of Interstellar Health. It claimed that human physiology was dangerously under-evolved in its pain signaling systems and that the species might be in constant peril without even knowing it. Within a week, Kalen's file was flagged for monitoring. The next time he visited the medbay, this time for a minor laceration on his forearm sustained during a maintenance drill, Zherix immediately ordered a full body scan. You are exhibiting symptoms of hemorrhagic trauma. It's a cut, Kalen said, wincing as antiseptic stung the wound. It's not even deep enough for stitches. Zherix studied the wound carefully. Blood has escaped the dermal boundary. Potential systemic infection. Loss of limb is not improbable. I cleaned it. That is insufficient. Kalen didn't push back this time. He let Zherix wrap the arm in a sterilized compression bandage and inject a broad-spectrum antibiotic. He wasn't about to start a diplomatic crisis over a scrape. Still, the difference in perception was becoming increasingly clear. Where Zherix saw disaster, Kalen saw inconvenience. Where the alien saw fragility, Kalen saw adaptability. 3 weeks later, Kalen was assigned to the planetary surface of Nox Tetra, a high-pressure mining outpost with unstable magnetic fields. The job required constant vigilance, heavy labor, and quick problem-solving when things went wrong. Kalen excelled there. Until his right leg seized again. It hit during a night shift while he was recalibrating a failed pressure valve. The pain was sudden, intense, and familiar. He groaned, dropped his wrench, and leaned against a bulkhead. Not now, he muttered. The nearest crew member, a Sarnan engineer named Vel, noticed his grimace and activated his comms. The human is injured. Medical team to Sector B. No, don't. Kalen tried to wave him off. But the signal had already gone through. Within minutes, Zherix arrived via emergency shuttle, flanked by a team of med techs. Kalen was already sitting, trying to stretch the calf out. Again? He groaned. Zherix scanned him. Recurring spasmodic anomaly. Accelerated progression. Potential systemic failure. Kalen wiped sweat from his brow. It's just a cramp. Again. Zherix ignored him and activated a full-body immobilization field. Kalen's limbs locked in place. He couldn't even twitch. Protocol mandates complete stasis until the origin of the failure is isolated. I told you what it is. You are incapable of accurate self-diagnosis. Kalen gritted his teeth. You're incapable of understanding that not everything is a death sentence. Zherix tilted its head. All pain signals are serious. Pain is a warning, not a verdict. The standoff lasted 3 hours. Eventually, a human physician from the Earth Embassy, Dr. Mallory, arrived and reviewed the scans. She confirmed Kalen's diagnosis. He's dehydrated. Give him fluids, release the field, and let him rest. Zherix hesitated. He may not survive. He'll be fine. He just needs rest and electrolytes. Zherix finally, reluctantly, disengaged the immobilization field. Kalen slumped forward, groaning. Next time, he muttered. Just let me drink some water. But the situation had escalated beyond just Kalen. A full medical summit was convened between human doctors and the Interstellar Council. The question on the table: could humans be trusted to assess their own medical conditions? Zherix argued that human behavior was reckless, that their ability to function while in pain made them a risk to themselves and others, that their tolerance masked symptoms until it was too late. Dr. Mallory countered with data on human recovery patterns, pain thresholds, and adaptive behaviors under stress. She showed footage of Kalen completing a repair while limping on a recovering sprain, working through gritted teeth but still effective. This isn't recklessness, she said. It's resilience. The council didn't come to a conclusion that day, but protocols were adjusted. Humans would now be allowed a brief window to self-assess non-critical injuries before emergency intervention was authorized. Kalen returned to duty under light restrictions. He had to check in with medbay twice a week and submit hydration logs. He didn't mind. What mattered was that he could still work. One night, while sitting in the mess hall, Zherix approached him. You continue to function despite recurring muscular failures. Kalen nodded. Yeah, I stretch more now, drink more water. It helps. Zherix sat across from him. Your species is confusing. You're not the first to say that. I have studied over 100 sentient life forms. None react to injury the way you do. Kalen raised an eyebrow. And I do not understand you. But I am beginning to respect your capacity to survive. Kalen cracked a grin. That's all we ask. Zherix dipped its head slightly. If your leg spasms again, I will not initiate full stasis immediately. Progress, Kalen said, raising his cup. Zherix stared at the cup. Why do you ingest sodium-infused water voluntarily? It's called sports drink. You'll learn to love it. Zherix didn't respond. But it didn't protest either. And for Kalen, that was enough. 5 days after the summit, Kalen was waist-deep in a coolant reservoir, prying a stuck valve loose with a carbon-forged pry bar, when the overhead lights dimmed for the 3rd time in under an hour. The magnetic field on Nox Tetra had been flaring intermittently, and the automated stabilizers were now flickering between settings like a nervous intern cycling through their first assignment. Either someone's prank hacking the grid, Kalen muttered, straining against the corroded metal, or that solar storm's worse than the forecast said. A nearby maintenance drone chirped an alarm and zipped off in the direction of the auxiliary battery banks. Kalen didn't look up. He gave the valve one last wrenching twist and felt it finally budge with a wet, metallic groan. The pressure equalized with a hiss, coolant sloshed around his boots, and he stood back, wiping his arm across his forehead. By the time he got back to the surface platform, the storm had begun to affect comms. Static washed over the intercoms. Visual feeds stuttered. On the horizon, thin filaments of charged particles danced in the upper atmosphere, casting green and violet streaks across the sky. Outside the shelter dome, Dr. Zherix stood motionless beside a shipping container, observing the auroras. Kalen, still damp from the reservoir, stepped up behind him. Beautiful, right? He said, voice slightly muffled by the wind. Zherix didn't shift. Electromagnetic anomalies of this magnitude disrupt biological synapse patterns in over 60% of known species. Kalen nodded. Yeah, but the colors are something else. Zherix turned slowly. Why are you not indoors? I was fixing the coolant feed. You want this station to stay pressurized, don't you? You are exposed to unstable atmospheric radiation. Not my first storm, Kalen said, glancing up. You can't bubble wrap the universe. Zherix's appendages clicked together in a sharp rhythm. Containment is not a metaphor. Neither is needing the system to work. Back inside the dome, the engineering team gathered to troubleshoot the field dampeners. Kalen grabbed a ration bar from the dispenser and leaned over the central console, watching the readouts fluctuate like a patient's irregular heartbeat. Chief Operator Lem, a broad-shouldered Martian-born technician with a cybernetic eye, tapped a screen and cursed under his breath. Field's not holding, he said. We've got micro-spikes destabilizing the lower grid. If one of those jumps the shield buffer, we'll be eating static for breakfast. Kalen bit into the bar, chewed, and swallowed before speaking. We can reroute the mag feedback through the outer coils, but we'll need someone to manually reset the arc capacitors. Lem's eye flickered red. You volunteering? Why not? You just got cleared from your last incident, which is why I'm good to go. Zherix entered behind them, scanning the displays. Your biological systems are still within post-exertion recovery. Further strain may cause neurological fatigue or muscular relapse. Kalen tossed the empty wrapper into the bin. I'll take my chances. Zherix rotated one ocular node toward Lem. Assign another operative. No one else here's trained to do a full capacitor reset midstorm, Lem said. Kalen's the only one who's done it manually. Zherix was silent for 7 seconds. Then it extended a small transponder. I will accompany him. Kalen blinked. You're volunteering to come into a radiation storm with me? You are statistically more likely to survive if monitored. I have prepared a portable med shroud. That's a first. The storm intensified within the hour. By the time they reached the south access hatch, the outer dome shimmered faintly with particle impacts. Kalen suited up in a reinforced exo-rig, sealed the helmet, and gave Zherix a nod. The alien activated a hovering shield unit that emitted a low-frequency hum, forming a translucent field around them. The trek across the platform was rough. Winds howled, carrying fine grains of ion-charged dust. Kalen's boots skidded twice on slick metal before they reached the capacitor housing. He keyed in the override and yanked the panel open. Inside, the circuits were glowing faintly, some already arcing. He reached in with a rubberized tool, carefully adjusting the alignment of the couplings while Zherix floated behind him, scanning his vitals. You are experiencing elevated cardiac activity. Yeah, Kalen grunted. Because I'm working. Your core temperature has increased by 0.8 degrees. That's called exertion. There is considerable risk of thermal stress. Kalen turned slightly. You're hovering inside a medicated force bubble. I'm hanging elbow deep in a capacitor array. Who's more at risk? Zherix didn't answer. Kalen finished the adjustment, reset the arc dampeners, and slammed the panel shut. A rising hum indicated the field was stabilizing. Done, he said, breathing hard. They made it back to the dome just as the first major surge hit. The outer wall lit up like a neon sign, but held. Inside, cheers erupted as systems normalized. Lem clapped Kalen on the back with a metallic thud. Buy you a drink, he said. Once the storm stops trying to kill us. Kalen nodded, peeled off his helmet, and ran a hand through sweat-damp hair. Zherix hovered silently, still monitoring his vitals. Later that cycle, Kalen was resting in the rec bay, sipping a hydration mix and watching a pre-recorded chess match on a wall screen when Zherix entered again. You are not in the infirmary. I'm fine. You are not resting adequately. Kalen gestured to the cot he was sitting on. What does this look like to you? Zherix approached. You are under stress. No kidding. We almost lost the dome today. You appear unbothered. Kalen set the drink down. Stress doesn't mean panic. We're built to handle a little edge. Zherix paused, then lowered its frame slightly, simulating a seated posture. Your species continues to contradict established models of survival behavior. We adapt. That's kind of our thing. I have reviewed your historical records. Your species has survived ice ages, plagues, atmospheric destabilization, and repeated self-inflicted disasters. Sounds about right. And yet, you continue to operate with minimal concern under conditions that would incapacitate most known life forms. Kalen raised an eyebrow. Are you complimenting us? I am attempting to understand. Your capacity for self-regulation under duress undermines every predictive model we employ. Maybe your models need an update. Zherix's ocular cluster shifted. This is not sarcasm? Nope. Zherix studied him for a long moment. You are aware that stress accumulation can result in systemic breakdown. Sure. That's why we build in recovery time. Your recovery is inefficient. But it works. Zherix made a soft clicking sound. I have submitted a request to study human adaptive patterns in extreme environments. Kalen chuckled. You volunteering to come spelunking with us next time we take a trip to the intervents? I will consider it. The next morning, an official dispatch arrived from the Earth Embassy, a request for Kalen to consult on a cross-species training program for high-risk repairs. Apparently, word had spread about the capacitor incident. The Council wanted to know how humans could function so effectively under unstable conditions without the typical supports other species needed. Zherix reviewed the briefing silently, then turned to Kalen. They wish to understand your anomaly. We just call it grit. I will accompany you. Kalen raised an eyebrow. To Earth? No. To the training site. I wish to observe your instruction. Kalen stood, stretched, and cracked his neck. Fine by me, but I'm not changing how I teach. Zherix nodded. I would not ask you to. As they exited the dome, the storm's remnants still glowing faintly on the horizon, Zherix paused. You are aware that your behavior is illogical by most standards. Kalen grinned. And yet here we are. Zherix's oculars narrowed. Indeed. 2 weeks after the capacitor incident, Kalen stood in the middle of a pressure-sealed training dome on Persis Outpost 3, a joint human-alien facility designed for cross-species engineering drills. The dome was ringed with modular obstacles, depressurization chambers, unstable platforms, and a gravity variance corridor that tilted erratically every 9 seconds. Inside, 6 recruits were strapped into adaptive suits, watching Kalen demonstrate a manual recoupling procedure on a simulated plasma conduit. Zherix floated nearby, its observation panel recording continuously. It hadn't said a word in nearly an hour. All right, Kalen said, tightening the last clamp. Who here gets nervous around high-heat welding arcs? No one raised a hand. One of the recruits, a 4-limbed Avesian with reflective skin, blinked all 3 eyes at once. Liars, Kalen muttered. Fear's fine. What's not fine is pretending you don't have any. He handed the toolset to the Avesian. Your turn. Strip the sheath, reseal the conduit, and don't fry your own digits. The recruit hesitated, then stepped forward. The others watched closely. Kalen crossed his arms and leaned against a support beam. His knee still stiff from the storm trek but holding up. Zherix hovered a little closer. You did not correct the recruit's grip posture. He'll figure it out when the arc flares sideways. Better to learn on a simulator than a live line. You are allowing him to risk injury. There's a difference between hurt and harm. Zherix paused. Explain. Hurt means discomfort that teaches you something. Harm means damage you don't come back from. Big difference. Zherix remained silent, processing. The Avesian flinched as the arc sparked sideways. He adjusted, tried again, and got it right the second time. Kalen gave a short nod. Better. By the end of the drill, 4 of the 6 recruits had completed the recoupling under variable gravity. One vomited. Another cried quietly while floating upside down. Kalen didn't comment. He just handed them electrolyte packets and told them to keep going until they didn't mess up. After the session, Zherix followed him to the equipment locker. They are fatigued. That's the point. Stress training doesn't work unless they hit the wall. You are aware that one began to experience synaptic misfires during the gravity pulse. He recovered. That's a win. You view physiological instability as a metric of progress. I view struggling and continuing as the only real metric. That evening, just past second meal, Kalen sat on the wreck platform overlooking the perimeter wall. The artificial dusk was painted in soft bluish hues and a light mist drifted across the training yard. Zherix approached carrying a portable medkit. You are overdue for recalibration scans. Kalen looked up. No ruptures, no fractures, and I'm not dizzy. You'll have to settle for conversation. Zherix opened the scanner anyway and began a passive sweep. Your blood pressure is elevated. I've got 6 rookies tomorrow and a collapsed module to fix. Elevated's normal. Zherix did not respond immediately. Instead, it pulled up a small projection of a human nervous system. There is something I do not understand. Only one thing? Your species' capacity to endure injury without immediate withdrawal. Most intelligent organisms self-limit to avoid system failure. We're not built to bail at the first warning sign. Why not? Because most of the time, quitting's worse than pushing through. Zherix rotated the projection. But your body deteriorates. Neural wear, muscular strain, organ fatigue. I have observed you limp for entire cycles without complaint. That's because I can still move. You do not value homeostasis? I value finishing the job. Later that night, Kalen lay on his bunk, massaging his left shoulder, which had started throbbing after lifting a collapsed scaffolding unit without waiting for assist drones. He winced, rolled over, and shoved a gel pack under his ribs. At dawn, the training dome's south lift malfunctioned. A Cernari recruit was trapped at the junction when the emergency brake failed. Kalen was already on his way up the maintenance shaft when the others were still arguing about voltage thresholds. He reached the stuck platform and wedged himself into the access crawl. The air was thick with ozone and the lift's motor was humming erratically. He shouted for the recruit to stay still and started wrenching the manual override gear into place. One of the bolts slipped. The edge carved a shallow gash across his forearm. Blood welled instantly. Of course, he muttered. He tore a strip from his undershirt and tied it tightly just above the wound. By the time he forced the brake into lock and pulled the recruit to safety, he was pale and sweating. Zherix met them at the base of the shaft, scanner already active. You are bleeding. No kidding. You require immediate vascular stasis. Give me 5 minutes. I'll be fine. Zherix turned to the recruit. He is not a suitable model for standard medical protocol. The recruit's voice was shaky. He got me out. Nothing else mattered. Zherix hesitated, then moved aside as Kalen staggered toward the medical dome. Inside, a human medic cleaned the wound and applied a synthetic sealant. Kalen hissed but didn't flinch. You're lucky, the medic said. Another centimeter and you'd have needed arterial clamps. I'll take lucky. Zherix stood silently in the corner. After the medic left, it approached the side of the cot. You ignored pain. I delayed it. You accepted risk of circulatory failure. I managed it. Zherix studied him. There is a contradiction in your methods. Probably. You sustain function by treating damage as inconvenience. Kalen chuckled. It is. Until it's not. The next day, a delegation from the Interstellar Training Directorate arrived to observe the human-led drills. Kalen ran them through pressure suit decompression drills, zero visibility coupling, and a full blackout power reroute scenario. By midday, the Directorate leader, a crystalline being named Halex, approached him. We were told you exemplify human durability. What we see is recklessness. Kalen wiped grease from his face. You're not wrong. But it works. How can you ensure your methods will not lead to mass failure? Because they're not based on comfort. They're based on necessity. Zherix interjected. He maintains effectiveness under severe biological stress. I have verified it repeatedly. Halex's facets flickered. That is not a recommendation. No, Zherix said. It is an observation of capability beyond modeled norms. Halex departed without comment. Later that cycle, Zherix approached Kalen in the corridor outside the repair bay. I submitted my findings. Let me guess. Humans are irrational but oddly effective? Zherix paused. Close. I classified your resilience as structurally inefficient but tactically superior under variable conditions. Kalen laughed outright. I'll take it. I also recommended your training methods for inclusion in the Directorate's adaptive protocols. Kalen stopped walking. Seriously? Zherix nodded once. Your approach has demonstrated viability under pressure scenarios where standard models fail. Kalen exhaled slowly. Well, that's a first. You still bleed too easily. I'll try harder next time. I believe you will. They walked together down the corridor, past the humming equipment banks and toward the central lift. Zherix turned slightly. I still do not understand why you persist through pain. Kalen shrugged. Because the job needs doing. That is insufficient rationale. Maybe, but it's enough. Zherix did not argue. Outside, the artificial sky dimmed with a programmed dusk. The training dome powered down for scheduled maintenance. Inside, 6 recruits cleaned their gear in silence, tired but intact. No one had failed today. Kalen watched them through the viewport and flexed his bandaged arm. Progress, he said. Zherix, beside him, said nothing. But it didn't need to. Everything was already understood.